everyone, I'm Captain Logan, and thanks for joining me for another Primetime Crisis vlog today, tackling the most recent episode of Supergirl, and the episode in question is Medusa, the first, allegedly, of the big, epic four-part crossover with the other CW shows, and is somewhat of a letdown, or maybe a big letdown, especially considering the way this whole thing has been advertised, that it doesn't feature any of our characters from the other CW shows until the very end. It's bookended with a portal that the Flash is attempting to open. I don't really know why it's as difficult for him to jump in as it is, and kind of convenient timing, certainly, that it doesn't work at the beginning, and then there's a bioweapon and a big giant problem we have to solve, and then it's solved, and then immediately after that, the portal opens, and oh, now it's time to go on to this other adventure. But the way this has been advertised is as a big four-part crossover event, and it's really just set up at the end of this episode of Supergirl. So anybody that's only watching the Flash and Arrow universe, of which there are plenty, I'm sure, that haven't jumped into Supergirl just because it changed networks, if they know that that show isn't part of that universe and is only another universe in that multiverse and isn't usually going to really affect events in Flash and Arrow and Legends of Tomorrow that often, there's got to be a lot of people that aren't watching this show because of that. So any of those people that came and watched this because it was supposed to be the first part of a big crossover are going to be really disappointed, I think. That especially because this is kind of the climax of a story that has been going on the last couple episodes with Supergirl. So you come in kind of having no idea what's been going on in this show, and we're paying some stuff off and setting things up for the future, and maybe that's by design, trying to hope that we can again hang on to people like we did with the Superman hook at the beginning of the season, but I kind of doubt that that's going to be real successful, given that those folks came over for a crossover and don't get to see Barry and Cisco until the 11th hour, right at the very end of the episode. Let's go ahead and get straight into the bioweapon thing. Hank Henshaw and Cyborg Superman, still as goofy as it was last time. I'm not won over by that yet. I'm still rolling my eyes at it. It's so goofy. If Hank Henshaw had some kind of an obsession with Superman, if he wanted to, like, replace Superman, or had always been jealous of him for some reason or something like that, his having these delusions of Supermanness might work, regardless of the fact that he doesn't look anything like Superman and he's not wearing a Superman costume. But the fact that he is still calling himself that with no explanation at all beyond, I mean, in the show, no explanation. It really does seem to just be, that's what he's called in the comics. It's just too silly, and I need there to be more to it than that. He's a completely generic character, a generic villain. There's nothing to him yet, and that is so unfortunate and such a giant letdown. And I talked about this last episode, but I was hoping they would do something this time to win me over with it, and they just didn't. Furthermore, the blood that he steals from Kara really is just to get into the fortress. I thought it might have had something to do with the bioweapon, and when Kara brings that up and is like, oh, that's why he stole my blood, I was like, oh, do tell. And then she's like, to get into the fortress. And I'm like, really? Your blood it really is the thing that gets you into the fortress? That seems like a terrible idea. And once again, I just don't understand why Kelex isn't like, wait a minute, you don't look like Kara. Is he? And then when she goes to the fortress, which, by the way, I love that set. If I didn't say that before at the beginning of the season, it's a really, really pretty fortress. But, and I love that they have the statues and stuff. But why does Kelex immediately turn on her when she gets there? Has he been reprogrammed somehow? Is it that, like I don't know why he thinks that she's not Kara, or is it that he thinks she's Kara, but again, he's been somehow reprogrammed? How would Hank Henshaw know how to do that? Is it because he's a cyborg? I kind of think maybe we needed to have seen that. I don't know. And is that all your security? Just one floaty robot that's easily taken out if you're Kryptonian? Okay, that seems a little bit easy. It looks like the Fortress of Solitude is the easiest thing to break into, and at the beginning of the season, they made it look like much more of the comic book, hard to break into fortress, the giant key under the mat kind of fortress. So anyway, that whole thing was super goofy. This Bioweapon, we're playing kind of fast and loose with the rules of it and what exactly it does. Unless I missed something, I don't think there's a whole lot of discussion about reverse engineering it or anything. And it's, or maybe, because it's a throwaway line at the end, Kara's human mother, her adopted mother, Danvers, when she uses it to turn Hank Henshaw, to turn John Jones back into regular Martian, a green Martian, I should say. I guess maybe she reverse engineered it or was able to futz with it and get it to only attack non-Martian, non-green Martian blood. I don't know. We kind of used it as a plot device just to get rid of his white Martianness, and I'll get to that in a minute, because that's kind of the thing I most detested in this episode, I think. And overall, didn't love this one. I should probably just put up front right now. But anyway, It's originally a bioweapon that's built by Zor-El, because of course all the important Kryptonian stuff has to have to do with her parents, because she's the protagonist of the show. I'll give it a certain amount of leeway for that, but it's kind of one too many things at this point. Like, it very easily could have been a weapon engineered by someone else. It could have had to do with Jor-El. It could have had to do with Zod. Nope, it's Zor-El, of course. And it just, I don't know, that just seems too easy and too convenient, because she's the person that has to deal with this problem, and we have to find some way to manufacture it to look personal. And you can do that, I just don't think it's thoughtful enough. I think we've done this too many times, where all the major Kryptonian stuff has to do with specifically her family, and not just the L family, but specifically her immediate family inside the L family. But anyway, so Zor-El created this bioweapon. Turns out that he was totally cool with mass casualties if they weren't Kryptonian, and he wasn't, in Supergirl's mind, waging a very fair war. It seems like he was even maybe okay with straight-up genocide, and he justifies it by saying, well, yes, I was saving lives, I was saving Kryptonian lives, and so she's becoming, as she says, disillusioned with her parents. First Allura last season, now Zor-El, and she's trying to figure out, where she stands now with her past, and if she asks, is this my parents' legacy? And I do kind of like that line. I think it's Martian Manhunter who says it, where he says, no, you're their legacy, but of course, not really. I mean, that's just you moving past that, trying to give your name a different reputation. Their legacy is still their legacy unless nobody ever finds out about it. But anyway, so there's a parallel there with Lena Luthor, which was a subplot I ended up liking quite a bit by the end, I think, where both of them, of course, have parentages that they are disillusioned with, and they don't want to become their parents, they want to go the other way. It's very much Lex Luthor in Smallville. Lena Luthor seems to be what Lex would have been if he had gone down the right path in Smallville. And I didn't talk about this last week, but Lilith Luthor, her mother, is very much just female Lionel Luthor, kind of straight up. And there's talk about Lex's father, and the company used to be called Luthor Corp before it was changed to L Corp, and that makes me wonder if Lionel Luthor doesn't exist in this universe, and I'll be interested to see if that's a character we ever meet or we talk about anymore, because he's not name-dropped yet, and this show is suddenly seeing quite a bit of influence on the Luthor side from Smallville, where you have the kind of evil parent or evil parents who raised their children in a way to become ruthless and despotic. and as opposed to the comic book version of Lex Luthor, or at least what it was when I was growing up, because it's changed around some here and there. There's a lot of different versions of it, of course, but the 90s Lex Luthor, who, and I think this exists before that too, whose parents are killed in a tenement fire, and it turns out that he did that on purpose, and he uses the insurance money to start his company. In Smallville, that's Lionel's backstory. And so Lionel is just comic book Lex Luthor, and then we have a Lex Luthor with a lot more dimension, who's a lot more conflicted and has a choice of which path he wants to go down, and he wants to be more like Clark Kent, but he is so influenced by his father, and he has this massive ambition that takes him over. Well, that seems to be the Lex Luthor also in this world, who has just already gone full tilt, just short of trying to run for president. And then we have Lena Luthor, who's kind of who, like I said, is kind of him if he went down the optimistic road and the altruistic road. I guess you kind of had that to a degree, although it's been so long since I've watched the last couple seasons that I can't remember what exactly her fate was, but you have this a little bit with Tess Mercer in Smallville too, where she's kind of Lex Luthor if he was a better person, I think, but like I said, I can't remember where we're left with her by the end. But anyway, so the episode tries to fake us out all over the place in thinking that Lena Luthor might actually be as bad as you would have expected from the beginning, and that Kara really is a poor judge of character, and that she's wrong about her. And by the end, we find out that Kara was right all along, and that her pushing the button to launch the weapon and to seed it all over the city to kill all the aliens is actually a ruse, and that she's changed the formula, so that it doesn't actually harm anybody. And I really liked that. At the same time, I'm really glad that she's not just mustache twirling and was pretending the whole time, because that's just not interesting. And I would love turning this on its head, where Lena becomes one of the, maybe constantly fighting that upbringing. It's challenging for her, but she keeps refusing to change in that way, where she ends up being a major ally for Supergirl. And I really love the idea of of the Superman character in your show, Supergirl, working with the Lex Luthor character, and that person, because this is such an optimistic show, or it plays a lot as a really optimistic show, that we show that sometimes that person really can change, and that it is a matter of choice as opposed to a matter of nature, and that Lex Luthor, it's hard, but if he wanted to be a better person, he could have all along, and we're seeing that with Lena. The part where I hesitate a little bit in giving it too much credit for that is it seemed like such a light switch when she was like, well, that reporter just doesn't know me very well, and I think that's this. I can't remember what exactly she says now that I'm thinking about it. But when she's talking to her mother, and or maybe it's even, Mom, you don't know me very well. That's what it is, because she's like, I didn't think you were ever for the cause. And there are a couple of plants early on that make us kind of wonder just how she feels about aliens, and of course she makes that device so that you can tell if a person is an alien or a human, and that is, of course, straight up profiling, but that doesn't mean that she wants to kill all the aliens, or even necessarily that she sees humans as better than aliens. She just wants people to be able to know the truth, and the question is, what is your motivation for that, and is that fair, is that right? Doesn't that, go against basic freedoms, where, if someone doesn't want you to know that they're an alien, maybe that should be their right. Maybe they shouldn't be outed and profiled and stereotyped in that way. But that doesn't immediately make her evil or bigoted or anything, or you can argue about the bigot part, but it certainly doesn't make her evil immediately. And when we have that moment where they try to dupe us, and it's so light switchy, she's actually been anti-alien this whole time, and she's been acting as Wynn says, the Luthors are good actors. I'm like, okay, that seems really easy. And also, it throws Kara under the bus a little bit, although there could have been a cool character arc there for Kara, where she discovers that she isn't very good at reading people, and maybe she's gotten too naive, and she's having a hard time finding that balance between reasonable suspicion and paranoia, or just, you know, not being suspicious ever and then letting people take advantage of you. But I was really. I just didn't think I would buy it if it turned out that that was the case. And I think the reason that they were able to, that the episode managed to make me guess the whole time, is because I didn't trust it. It shouldn't be that, because that's just too simple. This character has been played as more complex and more complicated than that this whole season. And if it turns out all of a sudden she's just been pretending the whole time, that's not interesting, and I don't want that. But and I don't buy it. But I was duped by it, or not even duped, because I wasn't sure. But I thought it was possible that they wouldn't go there because I don't trust the show, and that's not a great reason for your mystery to be effective. If the reason I think. Like, I need to think that either one of those inevitabilities would be believable, and I didn't. But the reason it kept me guessing is because I don't trust the show with that. And that's unfortunate, but I'm glad that it doesn't go that way. It makes me trust the show a little bit more. So that's why I'm a little bit conflicted about how much credit I want to give that. So I don't like what we're doing with Martian Manhunter at this point, with the whole White Martian thing. I think he needs to become full White Martian and have to deal with it. And I'm not saying it's bad because they're not doing what I wanted. I'm saying that he seems to kind of be rewarded for his stereotyping and his refusal to acknowledge that not every person of a particular race or species is the same. And I'm not saying that it's bad that our Martian Manhunter right now is racist against the White Martians, and that, he's totally unsympathetic because he has the wrong ethics. I totally get why he's there, but shouldn't he have to learn something from that? I thought the idea of turning him into a White Martian, as silly as I thought it was played last episode when he starts to turn into one, like his hand starts to change just as he's explaining that he's turning into a White Martian. I thought the idea of his turning into one might be a thing that leads him to a place of tolerance, where he starts to realize that Magan is telling the truth, and there's really no immediate difference between the Green Martians and the White Martians, except for what the White Martians decided that they were. What really bothers me about this episode is that he says, I'm turning into a monster, and then at the end of the episode, Danvers is able to turn him back into a Green Martian and everything's okay. What exactly are the stakes there? It's just he's having his species changed, but he can't live as a White Martian. What does it do to him exactly? He still has shape-shifting ability. Magan's a White Martian. It turns him into what killed his family, and that would be psychologically a really hard thing to deal with, and it would feel awful, certainly, but isn't that an interesting situation to put him in? Wouldn't you want to see him have to deal with that? And maybe down the road he gets to turn back into a Green Martian, but I wanted to see all that play out. I'm really bothered by this idea, because John Jones is the voice of reason in the show, and he's the guy with all the wisdom, and this is a lesson he needs to learn so that he can, retain his objectivity. He says that he's turning into a monster, relatively to most casual observers, and even me earlier on the season when I couldn't remember if that's what a White Martian looked like. I called it Magan's monster form. Incorrectly. No, she's a White Martian. What makes it a monster? Just that it looks scary, just that it's tall and big and has big giant scary teeth, and it's all monstrous, but does that make you a monster? No, not necessarily. Magan's not a monster. She just has a big or her just natural state of being is a big, tall, monster-looking creature. But it's her actions that define her, right? And she's proven so far. I mean, there are obviously parallels all over the place with a lot of different characters in this show, with Lena Luthor, with Magan, and with Mon-El. The nature versus nurture question: can they become more than a sum of their parts? Can they move past the bad or irresponsible things in their culture's background to become their own independent people who do the right thing and really stand for something? And so far the show seems to be on the side of, yes, you can do that, and it's fine to keep asking the question, but play that out, because as it is right now, the show is basically saying, yes, he was turning into a monster. I mean, maybe it'll play out differently as we move along. I don't want to condemn it entirely until I see where it's all going. But I kind of, my prediction, and obviously my predictions this season have not been very good. But my prediction right now is, we're just going to move along from this. I mean, maybe he'll come to decide that Magan is a good person, and I think to some degree he already has. But like, let's face it, he's completely racist against the white Martians, and he has reason to be that way, but he's gotta learn at some point that they're not all the same, even though the majority of the white Martians were awful and were responsible for killing his race and his people. But yeah, that should have played out. He should have had to face that, and I really thought that's where we were going. So I was disappointed with that, and I don't like that it looks like he was kind of rewarded for his stereotyping all of white Martians. And then you got the relationship stuff, which I'm not going to talk a lot about. The stuff with Alex has turned pretty darn typical. I thought she was obnoxious at the beginning of this episode. And once again, I can understand how upset she is to a certain degree, but she got to a point at Thanksgiving where she was just insufferable, and it seems to be just an excuse so that we can stretch out Supergirl not finding out about Guardian yet. And it makes her look really unsympathetic just to get to that place where she gets super drunk and she's like, no, you can't have your big news, even though I told you to tell Kara that you are Guardian, because I have my big news. And she's just gotten so self-absorbed and super selfish about the whole thing, and I don't like that. I gave her a lot of rope, and I feel like she took way too much of it. And I don't have an opinion yet about already putting her and Maggie Sawyer in a relationship. I personally, it would have been nice, I think, for it to take a while before we got there. And I mean, I know I complain all the time. I don't mean to be hypocritical about this, that we sit on our hands and stretch out the relationship drama way too much in these shows. But that's a different situation, I think. That's kind of extenuating, where she is just now realizing that her sexual orientation is not what she thought it was, and she's finding herself. And we were handling that in such a mature way the first couple episodes. I thought maybe we would let her live with that understanding of herself and continue to grow and discover who she is for a while before she and Maggie Sawyer get into a relationship. And I also thought that Maggie was pretty understanding and but also realistic about the whole situation, and that I was with her when she said I shouldn't jump right into a relationship with someone fresh off the boat. And now they've done that because drama, and these shows can't keep characters together, and I'm sure that's going to end up being a tragic breakup, and maybe they'll handle it well. I don't know, but I'm not in love with it right now. I liked the way the Mon-El thing was handled a lot more, where he's really into Supergirl, but he doesn't want to tell her about it yet, and he's really unsure about that whole thing, kind of nervous about it. I like that by the end, it's not that he doesn't remember, because for a minute I thought maybe they actually have him, not he was so delirious that he doesn't remember that they have that kiss, and then we have a shot of his face that makes it really clear, that expression. No, he does remember it, and he's maybe thinking better of it. Again, that could get stretched and get really irritating, but for whatever reason, I'm finding the way he's reacting to the whole thing to be kind of believable. Maybe that'll be kind of a parallel with Alex, too, where he never thought he would date a Kryptonian, and, she never thought she would date a woman, and he's discovering something about himself in a somewhat similar way as she is, in figuring out her identity. Overall, was not real impressed with this one. Leave your comments, let me know what you thought of this episode, if you saw it, and thanks always for watching, sure appreciate it. I'll be back with you again pretty soon with more Primetime Crisis. Have not entirely decided yet if we're going to handle the rest of, or I guess basically all of, the big crossover, the aliens versus superheroes thing. In one show, or if we're going to separate it out. I think I'm going to watch Flash and see how it handles it, and make a determination after that. But Rasco and I might be joining forces to review that whole thing a little bit later in the week or over the weekend. So anyway, I'll look forward to that. Thanks a lot for watching. Sure appreciate it. I am Captain Logan, and I'll see you again next time.